We are now live.
Welcome everyone to the March 19th Transit Committee virtually. We normally meet on the third Tuesday of the month from 5 to 7 p.m. The Transit Committee is a volunteer citizen board designed to offer input and guidance
We
to
are
the
now
Asheville
live.
transit system and City Council. Welcome we everyone. Do not set or change routes, control Asheville's transit budget, or have authority over staff, drivers, or the management company. We are a group of citizens like you who are here to ensure community concerns are taken into consideration when setting public transit policy. At this time, I'll go ahead and have roll call. Harvey Harold, I am your chair. I am here. Glad to be here. Sandy Aldridge, vice chair.
I'm here, Harvey.
Thank you, Sandy, for being here. Joseph Chesler. Come on, Joe, I know you're there. Joseph Chesler. Joe must have went somewhere. I heard his voice earlier. Bill Loftus.
I'm present. Hello, Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Hello to you too. And Colin Kenton.
Present.
All right, Colin. Carol Wheeler.
Present.
Thank you for being here today, Carol. Jessica Morris, are you with us today? Amber Wagner.
I'm here, Harvey.
Okay. Christopher Whitlock.
Yes, here.
Christina Harris. I'm glad you're here, Chris.
I'm here.
Thank you, Christina, for being there. Nicole Hart.
Present.
Okay. Keith Sanders.
Thank you, Chairman Harold. Keith Sanders is present.
Thank you, sir. LaShawn Abraham.
I'm here.
Danielle Aiken. She's driving. I don't know if she's going to hear us or not. Danielle.
I am here, Harvey. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for being here. Okay. Let me drink of water. At
Harvey,
this time,
this is Joe Chesler. I'm here. I'm sorry, I had trouble with my audio.
I knew you were here, Joe. Thank you for being here, Joe.
And this is Kim Roney, your city council liaison. I'm here as well.
Oh, Kim, I'm glad you're here today. Very glad you're here today. At this time, we'll go ahead and vote on the agendas. I take it everyone has read the agendas and ready for the review and approval, because I ask diligently every month that everybody read very carefully the agendas. May I have a motion to accept March 19th, 2024 and February 20th, 2024 minutes? May I have a motion, please, to accept?
So moved.
I'll motion.
May I have a second, please? May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bill. I have a vote. Harvey Harold votes yay. Sandy Aldridge.
Yay.
Joseph Chesler.
It's a yay.
Bill Loftus.
Yay.
Colin Kenton.
Yay.
Carol Wheeler.
Yay.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and read. We have a letter and public comment. I'll go ahead and read that at this time. There'll be no comment on this, but it's imperative that I read it to the committee and staff. This letter is from Deborah Donkel, dated March 18th. And it's addressed to the Transit Authority and Transit Committee is the way she wrote it. Dear Asheville Transit Authority and Transit Committee, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to follow up on a previous correspondence dated February 22nd, 2024 regarding an unsettled experience I had on Asheville Transit Bus S5 at stop 656 on February 14th, 2024. In that letter, I detailed an accident involving a young passenger who occupied the priority seating designated for disabled and elderly individuals, refusing to move his belongings to allow me to sit. Despite my visible mobility impairment and my request for him to do so. Since my initial complaint, I have taken steps to communicate the gravity of this situation by reporting the incident to the transit center. Additionally, I offer suggestions for improving the situation through better signage on buses during the Transit Committee's public hearing on February 20th, 2024. However, given the conventional due date and timing of the nature of this communication method, I am concerned that my feedback may not have been adequately received or considered. As a concerned passenger and a member of the community who relies on Asheville Transit for mobility, I am keen to know that measures have been considered or implemented to address the issues raised in my initial complaint. Specifically, I am interested in any progress regarding 1, the issuance of a public statement to remind passengers of the importance of respecting priority seating. 2, clarification and enforcement of seat usage rules, including many steps taken to improve signage or provide training for bus drivers on managing such situations. 3, any initiatives launched to increase awareness and empathy among the public about the challenges faced by passengers with disabilities and the importance of an inclusive and accessible public transportation system. The accessibility and inclusivity of public transportation are crucial for freedom and dignity of all passengers, especially those among us who are disabled or elderly. It is my hope that my feedback will contribute to making Asheville Transit a model of accessibility and respect in our community. I look forward to hearing about the actions that have been taken and any plans for future initiatives. Please do not hesitate to contact me if further information or discussion is needed regarding my experiences or suggestions. Thank you again for your attention in this matter. I appreciate your commitment to improving the Asheville Transit experience for all passengers. Sincerely, Deborah Donko, thank you. Thank you for everyone for allowing me to bring that to you on the public comment. Moving on down to new business, RATP Dev staffing updates. I'd like to introduce everyone to the new general manager for RATP Dev, Keith Sanders. And Keith, would you like to introduce yourself, or Amber, did you want to introduce him to the committee?
Yes, I think Keith is on here. Keith?
Yes.
Keith, if you'd like to introduce, we're really excited to have Keith on board. Just recently came from Jacksonville Transit. He has prior senior leadership roles at WMATA and in MARTA and in Chicago Transit Authority. He's been on site for a couple weeks now, and I'm just going to hand it over and Keith can say a brief hi.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Amber. It's a pleasure to meet you, Chairman Harold, and the city of Asheville is both my constituents. I do look forward to doing great things and partnering with the city to make it better for the communities that we serve. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here, Keith, and you keep speaking like that. We're gonna be talking about getting on my choir. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, sir.
All right. You be helping me out. Moving on down to new transit committee application. I take it everyone has reviewed Elaine Barnes' application. And do any of my committee members have anything that they would like to say about Elaine's application to promote moving it forward? You know, y'all always know I got something for you.
I think Colin has his hand raised.
Where? I can't see it on this little phone.
Colin has his hand raised.
Colin, go ahead.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Elaine Barnes. My question was, do we have a minimum and maximum size of our committee?
I'll be going over that later. Yes, we're 11.
Well, then never mind.
Okay. All right, Colin. Moving on with Elaine Barnes. She's a 75-year young lady. She has a background in public health, has community contacts. She wants to promote public transit as well as a valuable service, and promises to advocate for public transit in Asheville. And that's what I have to say about Elaine Barnes. That's what welcome her on board for the transit committee. And does anyone else have anything they would like to add? Kim, thank you.
Yeah, this is just like this is just a procedural thing as your liaison and supportive role here. In the past, I have seen applications come forward, and as a member of your boards and commissions committee, as a subcommittee of council, we usually have a one sheet that goes along with the applications, which I don't see with your meeting materials. That kind of shows the current makeup of the commission. And as a previous transit committee member, one of the things we worked on was trying to make sure that all the transit routes were ridden by transit committee members through the year. And one of the easiest ways to do that was to make sure there was geographical representation on the transit committee. So let's say that if every single person on the transit committee lived in West Asheville or South Asheville, then it might be hard to advise on how things were going in East or North Asheville. Whereas if you have geographic representation, it's a little easier to understand how the whole system is working, and if there are gaps in representation. So just like as a system note, I noted that you didn't have like a bigger picture of where all the different route coverage was. And reviewing previous transit committee minutes and actions, I was like, oh, we haven't done something like that as a city in a while. So I thought it would be an important opportunity to lift up that previous experience that I had, and what a great resource it was to kind of highlight the different routes that each of the transit committee members ride, and what your rider experience is just from the different locations that you're coming from. So that has nothing to do with your current application, just a little bit on process.
Thank you, Roni. Does anyone have any response? I appreciate that, Kim, very much. Moving forward, I would like to make a motion to accept Elena Barnes' application and move it on to multimodal for their consideration for Elaine Barnes being a member of the transit committee. May I have a motion to accept her application?
I'll motion.
May I have a second?
This is Joe Harvey. I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. All right, we'll go ahead and vote on that.
Harvey,
Harvey,
I apologize. Bill had his hand raised. I don't think you saw it. Bill, did you have something you wanted to add?
there's nothing on my screen.
Yeah, I pulled it off because we were going ahead. I was just, first of all, Kim, I appreciate your point. The context of how we do this, I'm suddenly feeling it's important and we've sort of missed a few steps. I mean, we come into this meeting, I didn't realize we were looking for somebody. To Colin's point, I sort of felt like we were full. We're obviously not.
No.
And so I would just like to ask the group if we may want to give some thought into how we want this process to go in terms of geography, in terms of what are we looking for, in terms of, do we want to advocate for more people aggressively so we get a pot of 5 and pick one, or we don't have a process, and I think we deserve one. So that's a comment. I don't want it to stand in the way of this eager applicant. So, but I do think that our group needs a process, and this could be the matter of Harvey making a little working committee that figures out what we want to do and report back to the group. I'm just throwing that out as ideas, but I just think we need a process as opposed to just ad hoc doing this. So that's kind of my point. And this kind of hit me just all of a sudden, and it's hard for me to react because we don't have a process. So I'll stop there.
Councilwoman Roney?
Yeah, I just wanted to note, since Bill raised a couple questions, I know that it is not uncommon for boards and commissions to request more time to reopen the applicant pool. Now, since we've moved to virtual meetings of the Transit Committee, that has made it more accessible for people to participate. It has also in the past been difficult to recruit Transit Committee members. That said, I'm so glad that all of you are here. It matters so much to me that we have people who are advising us on our transit system. So it's not meant to discourage any applicants, just that you can say, let's take a moment to review a little bit of the process and how we want to move forward, because we have openings and we haven't always had applicants. It's not uncommon.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's input because every input has value. I want to give my input as far as moving forward, or where we're at right now. For a long time, we've had difficulty in finding people to come aboard on transit. When I first came aboard in 2018, I've been here for a while. It was like, you barely could get on the transit committee because we had a room full of people. I mean, we had a room full of people going from left to right and in the middle too. We filled up the room. And when I came in there and I looked around, I said, wow. But we only have a little room now. We can have 11 people on the transit committee. And when I came aboard, all of them filled up. I only got on because someone else decided to move out of town, I do believe. And so I necessarily took on a time that they had left. They had like a couple of years left. And then I continued on with my 3, and I'm on my other 3 now. So I've been here for a while. And I've appreciated all the moments that I've had on the transit committee. But I've never heard anything about getting together another group to necessarily look into who we need or whatever, but being thankful that we do have enough people to join in the transit committee is what I'm proud of. I would just like to say that. Before I start crying, I better move on. Because I love my transit. Moving forward, let me see. Did we get the vote in? Amber, Nicole.
You've got a motion and a second, I think.
Okay. Now my emotions got me. We'll go ahead and vote on this now on her nomination to move it forward to multimodal for their consideration. Harvey Harrell, I vote yes. Sandy Aldrich,
Yay.
Joseph Chesler,
Let's give her a shout. Yes.
thank you, Joseph. Bill Loftus,
Yes.
thank you, Bill. Colin Kenton,
Yes.
thank you, Colin. Carol Wheeler,
Yes.
thank you, Carol. And we'll move that forward to multimodal for their consideration. Thank you. Thank you, one and all. And we have public comments coming up. And I'll go ahead and read this. And about ethics as well. Boards and commissions advises public comments are, what's the background noise? Been hearing that for the last 15 minutes. Boards and commissions advise public comment are to be read as stated in the committee's bylaws. Board members should not respond to a public comment during the meeting. The chair may take note for further agenda items if a follow-up is needed, but no response or action should be taken place during the meeting itself when initially read, which I read earlier. And now I'm going to deal with the ethics policy, how we handle ourselves. The ethics policy for advisory boards and commissions and transit committee bylaws reminders for information purposes. Transit committee members serve as an advisory board body to the Multimodal Transportation Committee and the Transportation Department on matters affecting the transit system and its operation. Being a subcommittee of the Multimodal Transportation Commission, the Transit Committee is to report directly to the Commission. A majority vote is required to act on any matter before the committee. The matter then may be forwarded to the Multimodal Transportation Commission, who determine if the matter is to be forwarded to City Council. Unless specifically authorized to do so, members may not make public comments on behalf of the Transit Committee. Members are to use a disclaimer anytime they are making an individual public comment that they are not commenting on behalf of the committee. I want to read that again. Members are to use a disclaimer anytime they are making an individual public comment that they are not commenting on behalf of the committee. Transit committee members do not have authority over customers, staff, drivers, or the management company. I read that at every meeting. Transit committee members do not have authority over customers, staff, drivers, or the management company. If a member observes a customer's misconduct, they are to report the incident to staff to address. If a member observes an incident, unprofessional behavior involving staff or drivers, they are to report to management via email, iride@asheville.gov, or phone number 828-329-5943 to investigate and address the issue. It is important to include specifics such as route number, date, time, etc. when reporting. I repeat that again, it is important to include specifics such as route number, date, time, etc. when reporting. Get as much information as you can to report in the report. It helps staff out tremendously. Members are expected to show good judgment in the area of community relations and avoid actions which violate another person's right to a working environment free of harassment. Transit program funding projects update. Well, does anyone have any comment about what I just read? If not, we'll move.
This is Kim. I had my hand up, Harvey. I know you're trying to move through agenda, and I know what it's like to move through agenda virtually.
No, okay.
To have eyes and ears.
Remember to look at my little phone.
Right. So I just wanted to bring a couple ideas forward because when you're volunteering and to serve your community and to advise on a core service like transit that's so important to our city, it can feel not really encouraging just to get a list of the don'ts without fully understanding the do's. And so I wanted to make a couple of invitations and just share some of my personal experience as a former Transit and Multimodal Transportation Commission member. It is so powerful when you use your collective voice together and bring your professional and lived experience to the table. So for example, you've made a recommendation that there be increased service hours to the S3 and S6 in South Asheville. That recommendation collectively goes to the multimodal. And it's really important that your multimodal liaisons from transit carry that recommendation forward. The hope would be that that would then go to the Planning and Economic Development Committee of Council, and then PED has 3 members of council on it. They would then make a recommendation on it to the full council. As a additional layer of support, because the Transit Committee isn't technically provided a liaison from council support. I do this because I care very deeply about transit and I ride the bus. I also am happy to share your recommendations with the council as they come forward. And I went back and looked through your annual report to see what is the body of work you've taken up and what are some of the recommendations that have been made. And I wondered if it's possible that in addition to a list of things that are not appropriate, if there might be a desire to do some more actions on what is appropriate. So some examples. We have a situation with the UNCA routes that are not accessing campus. I see complaints about this from people who work on the UNCA campus and who live on the UNCA campus. They're looking for a better service option. I don't know if that comes y'all to make recommendations. I don't know if any members of the transit committee have tested out the routes and attempted to get onto campus to understand what these complaints are. I don't know if it makes sense to first go through, and I know I've talked about this with Harvey. Do y'all want to look at how to go through the complaints or even how to make your own input? Maybe there needs to be a system of a process in place first. But those are some of the ways that you can make collective recommendations as a group, which once again is so powerful. Another example, I think it was probably maybe 15 or 16. We had a member of the transit committee that recommended that there was a how to ride the bus campaign. Things like putting up your seats to people when you're sitting in the seats designated for people with disabilities and older adults, to put up signage in the bus. And there was a really great campaign along with some images looking at peer cities about best practices within riding the bus. Transit committee members took that on. A review of stops and the infrastructure. What is the seating that's available? There are so many recommendations that maybe need to be freshened up or touched up on. I also went back and looked through my own complaints that I made. And what I did was, in the lack of a process, I made my own form as a transit committee member. So when I saw something come up on the bus that needed extra attention, it had the day, the time, the route, and I would just like fill it out really quickly and be able to send it to staff so they would know as a committee member what was happening on the routes. And it was able to not have to wait until a monthly meeting for those kinds of concerns to come up. And I think that was perceived as an asset to the transit staff without giving instructions. It was like, here's what I saw on this day, place, and time. So maybe it's possible that there needs to be a freshen up on what we need the transit committee to do. And I think that the multimodal members might be able to speak with the multimodal commission at large and maybe provide some more questions or work plan ideas so that your collective voice is used better than just receiving staff reports monthly. I'm also available if you'd like to speak more about what you envision your service on the transit committee to look like. I just wanted to offer some examples of what my experience was like. And while it is not appropriate to speak just for one person as a transit committee member, it is incredibly powerful and useful to use your collective voice. That might look like sending the chair and vice chair or the chair and the multimodal commission with a recommendation to speak to multimodal during their meeting or to ask to speak to the council about the South Asheville service. But those are just some ideas, and let me know if there are other ways that I can be helpful as your liaison.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I appreciate that very much. As a committee, I speak for everyone. Does anyone have anything they would like to add to that? Thank you, Kim, very much. We'll take that under consideration and move forward with it. I can make sure anybody has their hand up. Transit program funding and projects update. Transit staff will provide an update on the recent presentation to planning and economic development.
Thanks, Harvey. Put this on the agenda as an information item. I just wanted to provide the information. I provided it in the memo as well that included the agenda, the presentation, and the recording of the presentation. We were requested to give an update on existing art funding, revenue expenditure overviews, and information on the art fleet. The fleet is aging. About 50% of the fleet is over 500 some thousand miles. We should be replacing our fleet we should be replacing buses at about 4 to 5 each year, and due to lack of funding, we are unable to do that. We were very excited that council did approve the purchase of 3 buses at the February meeting. We also provided an update about the Art Place project, which was a competitive grant that was funded in 21 or 22 before I joined the transit team. And it's an initial planning grant to do some engagement and some surveying and some stakeholder input. We will be moving forward with a scope and next steps. And then we also discussed the $300,000 that was in the fiscal year 24 budget for the regional joint transit plan with the county. And unfortunately, the county did not include their portion of the funding. So we are requesting on the staff level that a comprehensive operational and financial assessment be done in its place. So it would not be a regional scope. It would be more of a city specific in terms of the current transit system and looking at its existing services. We are looking a lot different coming out of COVID and after we implemented the new transit system or the service in 2020. Our routes are not recovering linear. There's some are recovering better. And these COAs are a really great tool to look at system performance, minor alignments, possibly different type of service delivery of the existing services, And using our transit master plan is kind of a footprint or a roadmap on how we're going to move forward with improvements and how we realistically fund the services that are laid out next in the transit master plan. We just wanted to provide an update, and I know that this group wanted to discuss it. So any information or additional information I can provide, please feel free to ask any additional questions. Yes, Colin?
Colin, okay. Colin?
Yes, Amber. What is your estimated cost for completing a comprehensive operations and financial assessment?
We do not know at this time. We're assuming between 200 to 300,000. That doesn't, we haven't scoped it out yet. We're just kind of looking at what other systems have done and what other assessments have cost, and they range everywhere from 75 to 500 to 600,000, depending on the scope and the assessment and what we want them to look at.
Do you have examples of other?
We do. There's been numerous COA. It's a tool that a lot of transit systems fixed route. It's not really a planning. It's more of a route level analysis, kind of on strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities of the existing system. And you look at it in a framework in terms of like a master plan to see what's realistic, what minor routes can be aligned to possibly look at the changes in ridership patterns, or if there's an area or a segment that has low ridership, maybe slight tweaks. And we can provide additional examples. There's a really good one out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and there's been some done in this state, as well as there's a couple in Ohio that we've looked at. I've looked at numerous ones. We can provide examples.
Okay. Thank you, Colin. Kara has her hand up.
Just curious on your comment on some routes are recovering better than others. I see the data for the ridership data is like in the 6 month, 8 month period. Mm-hmm. Do we have that full data set that really shows, route by route what that's looking like? Because I'm assuming we would turn some amount of data over to that company that we would contact.
Yes, we would provide that data on your master ridership list. You could take a look. It's by fiscal year, by route, and staff has done some internal analysis in terms of from 2019 pre-pandemic to at the beginning of the pandemic in 20 to 21 to 22 to 23 and the existing 6 months of 24, and have looked at our route recovery. Some routes are in the 30 to 50%, and some are like over 100% and are actually really doing well. So in that, we can provide that additional information. We just got Chris on board, and we can share that at the next meeting.
Okay, I feel like that would be great, especially the routes that are above pre-pandemic levels. It seems like something's going right there. And I mean, just mostly curious.
We have been chronically understaffed. So, and just kind of watching the trends with COVID this fiscal year, we are year to date, 10 to 20% increase system-wide on some of the services. While some haven't recovered as well, we're at least seeing system ridership increase, which means other folks are utilizing it. I think Councilmember Roney had her hand up, and then Bill.
Yeah.
I remember being a really new transit committee member and not knowing how to access documents. So what might help is if we're doing a verbal display about ridership, is if it's possible in the future to like share a screen and be like, walk through how you access it. I know that just a couple of times of doing that will help everyone get on board, because sometimes the staff documents, it can just be a lot to unpack, but it would be such a great asset to the community that's watching this meeting too.
No, we'd like to do that. And Chris just got on board with us at the beginning of February, and now we have some staff that can dedicate some time to this. And we're looking at ways to kind of improve our visually representation of the routes, because there's some really important ridership information. You know, currently we're just giving it to you by the fiscal year, by route, which is really important. But we haven't done a lot of that year-to-date analysis or route level specific like increases. And those are things that we're working on.
Okay. Bill has his hand up.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Harvey, and thank you, Amber. So I just
Appreciate
wanted
that,
to
Bill.
get refreshed on, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
so I want to just get an update, because we had a conversation about this when we met for coffee. There's the use of $300,000 for a study. There's an alternative proposal. I don't know if it's fresh or not or still active, but to use this money for higher frequency service in South Asheville. So I just wanted to make sure we got an update on where all that stands, because if I understood, and I listened in on the planning meeting too, and it sounded like both uses of money were discussed. There was conversation about, the way I took it, which way we might want to use the money. And so I want to make sure we're up to speed on those options, and we may want to render an opinion on that. So let me go back to you, Amber, and you give us an update on all that, if you don't mind.
You know, and I really can't speak to the advocates, and you all recommended the S3 and S6 frequency. We understand, and it's a solid recommendation off our transit master plan. We also are recommending that we do some analysis on our routes to look at performance. I mean, just our base level service is going to cost us additional in funding. And we have plugged our budget whole with $3 million, $2 million in ARPA, as well as $1 million in parking. And it's really not sustainable. So we want to do this COA to provide kind of some ways of, are we deploying our resources appropriately on some of these routes where maybe there could be some service, some route level recommendations that might help us save additional funding, possibly in service delivery, possibly looking at low ridership options, and then deploying funding in other places. In terms of the frequency request, I mean, I believe that's still in play, and it's been supported in the MMTC, and I think you all supported that in November.
But we can't do both, right?
I don't know if it's ever been an either or an or. I think it's just looking at the available funding.
Right. So we got $300,000 we might be able to spend. A study might cost 2 to 3. How much does frequency cost?
We've done some analysis, and I don't have those numbers in front of me. And I'm sorry, I don't have those. I probably should have. It's been a busy week. It's about two to, if you just do peak frequency, it's about 200 to 300,000. And then you have to also look at the availability of vehicles and operators. We would be fine with just peak, but if you were to do all day frequency, it would probably be about 800,000 to $1 million, plus you'd need additional vehicles.
So well, first of all, my reaction is it sounds like it is an either or. If you only got 300,000 to spend, you can't do both unless I'm overlooking something. And the second thing is, are you saying that it's really not clear how much the frequency option would cost?
No, we have those costs. I just don't have them up in front of me. I can provide that. My apologies. We've provided that information.
Well, let me ask you a more direct question. So Councilwoman Turner said in the meeting she wanted the transit committee's opinion on this. I'm not sure what she meant by this. If she meant, should we do the study, or if she meant we should do one or the other. So I think we were asked to express an opinion. It wasn't clear what she was asking specifically for, but I think we owe her something. If nothing else, just what a group of people think. And maybe it's we all have different voices. But how would you propose we go back to Congresswoman Turner and express our understanding of her question?
Are you asking, in terms of, I think whether you, I mean, that I am not really, we would need to provide additional feedback. We have the numbers, and I think from the Transit Committee, you all need to speak what you're supportive of. There is a need to do an analysis. I think we would do our due diligence to look at routes that are underperforming based on pre or post pandemic. And I also think it's really important that we discuss the future needs and what's needed and what's been requested in the first phase of the Transit Master Plan. They're both important and they're both needed. And I mean, we have a staff level recommendation that it's extremely important. We also feel that we'd like some data driven analysis to help us guide for further expansion and service enhancements.
Thank you. I'll process that. I think there's some other questions in queue.
Kara? Thank you, Bill.
Hey,
And thank you, Amber.
So wondering on this, I know last year the transit has been understaffed all year, and that y'all are back to full staff, which is awesome. Is this the type of thing that if we had been fully staffed, all last year, all the 2 years before that we wouldn't need this type of analysis would be done by staff? Or is this the type of thing that every 5 years we probably need to do this?
It's usually a routine activity that is done by transit systems that from outside. There's outside organizations and consultants that do these. These are they do really route level specific analysis on each route that we do not have the transit staff to do. And most transit systems don't. It's just a toolkit route operational analysis that a lot of systems do nationwide. To take a look at kind of the existing conditions of the service. It isn't like a master transit plan. It looks at really immediate or short-term recommendations to improve service for rider enhancement and experiences, and possibly minor tweaks, or even looking at micro transit or other ways our vehicles could be deployed, or different vehicles that could be deployed on our routes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bill, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just raised it again. So I'm sorry, Harvey.
Go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Amber, I totally agree with you. We need both. I mean, because the other comment is that we're way under budget, right? I mean, we cannot afford current service. Did I understand that correctly? And to a large degree, like $500,000. I understand that.
More,
too,
I mean, if
right?
you look at, that is going to be a budget, discussion during budget retreat, as well as, as they continue to look at the budget in terms of, where we're going to be, we don't have the ARPA anymore to offset transit. And this is just, we're not the only city department that has these issues. But no, it's important. And we also feel that the Transit Master Plan is a solid plan. The S3 and S6, particularly the S6 has recovered really well. The S3 is at about a 60 to 70% recovery, and we can provide that information. But they're both really important, as well as the commitment to the transit master plan and the need to provide those services to South Asheville and provide the additional frequency. But we do need to look at our system, and if there's any minor adjustments that we could make to improve efficiencies, save costs, and make a better rider experience, it's important to try to do that and look at our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities of what we're currently funding and what we're putting out on for service.
Yeah, it just feels like the proverbial rock in a hard place. I mean,
It is.
We can't conduct current service.
Mhm.
Just conceptually, though, if we had to cut service, which we might have to, it's either cut routes or cut hours, right?
Which,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, you can't.
It's so, and the reason I say that is Congresswoman Ullman made a comment about the frequency pilot, thinking that was a showstopper, and don't do because people make life changes because of routes. But that caused me some pause because we do change service and we do change routes. We had a conversation in this meeting last year about changing a route. So it seemed as though there was a position taken by a council member that said we should not do this because it might force life changes on people. And if that's true, that's valid. But I'm sort of the opinion that transportation staff has ways to deal with things like that because we've talked about it before, right? I mean, if things have to change, you have ways to educate the public and get them on board and all. And it's hateful that we have to, or shameful that we have to do that, but sometimes we run out of money and we have to make changes. So I'm really stuck on this one. And the reason I'm stuck is that we've also, as long as I've been on this group, talked about we need more frequency. And now we've got a chance to install more frequency. And what we're saying is, rather than install more frequency, we want to do another study. And that just doesn't, I just don't like that. Those two things together don't make sense to me. We need frequency. We got a chance to do frequency. Why don't we do frequency? Now, if it might truly affect somebody's life, then okay. If it's a showstopper, it's a showstopper. But I don't appreciate that concept just yet. So I need help on that.
I think from the standpoint of any time you put forth a pilot, it is concerning that you're not going to be able to fund it in the next fiscal year. And looking at our fiscal outlook in terms of our expenses, we would have to take a look at funding that. And I guess from the standpoint of transit service, you're looking at a large portion of our transit budget is merely just hours and labor. And so if we were asked to cut our budget and to reduce, we'd have to reduce service. I don't believe we have not been asked to do that. But when you look at the realities of our expenses and our revenue currently, that would be a challenge, particularly if you introduce a pilot that people may move to those segments based on increased frequency. And then the question would be is if you could commit to it in later years.
Do we know how long this pilot would be? If we had $300,000, would it be a year? Would it be 2 years? I mean, how long would it be? Is it just really up and out in 6 months? What would it look like?
I think we'd have to take a look at it. I mean, there's been a lot of questions and a lot of information, but there's not been some formal discussions of the pilot or the request.
Well, if there hasn't been, then how can we answer the Congresswoman's question? It sounds like an unanswerable question until we do the research.
we've provided information, and we will follow up on it.
I mean, if this is one person's opinion, I'd like to get to the bottom of it. If we have a chance to do more frequency with available $300,000, I'd like to do that, but I don't want to leave somebody out on a limb either. And if we don't have the apples to apples comparisons to just say, I got an option of A or B, we want both, but we can only have one, I think we need to go through that analysis. That's my first blush opinion. One person speaking.
Colin?
I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but Amber, can you maybe come back next month with what it would cost to do a pilot for a certain period of time with, rolling stock and hiring and fuel and all the estimates it would take to be able to do that?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay. Because obviously you don't want to hire somebody for a pilot, then turn around and have to lay them off if it would require additional staffing to do something like that. But just to have the numbers so that we can compare, because I don't think we have full information on what a study would, what this, we're estimating between 230, 100,000 for the study and what it would cost to do additional pilot.
We can provide all those costs associated with the frequency. They've been created. I just failed to include it and have it available. My apologies.
That's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. And thank you, Amber. Kara?
Yeah, Amber, just kind of following up on my previous question. I know this money came about because there was going to be a study with Buncombe County, and instead they didn't provide funding, so it's now Asheville only. But it kind of seems like this pot of money became available, and now we're thinking about what we were going to do with it. What were we going to do with how were we going to do this anyways if this pot of money hadn't been there? Does that make sense? Because it sounds like we all agree that the study is important and that we should be looking at routes and finding quick, easy fixes.
It was discussed to put it into the budget, but since the funds were there, because of the county, it was the staff's recommendation to utilize those funds for this assessment to kind of provide additional information, to give us some short-term and immediate term recommendations to improve efficiencies of the system and to look at the routes after COVID and after we implemented service in January of 2020. And there's not been a deep dive of how those services have performed. Plus, we introduced the service and then there was COVID. So this was just an opportunity to be able to look at efficiencies and also under the guise of the Transit Master Plan in terms of some realistic financial recommendations for us to bring forth to the community and to the council on what it'll take to continue with the Transit Master Plan in the future years.
Okay, so it was going to be a separate ask if this money had... Okay.
Yeah, it was on the horizon to do this analysis, since the service hasn't really had a deep dive and analysis into the routes that we implemented and the route changes and alignments that were made back in January of 2020.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. I don't know whether anybody has bothered to ask or have Amber, you may know. Have y'all asked LaShawn about her take on this, as far as the studies and how to use the 300,000, or what effect it would have on transit doing that? I was just wondering.
We've discussed the S3 and S3 frequency for peak and all day increase of service with the operations team, particularly in terms of vehicle usage and labor availability. And they've provided input and assisted us with that information.
So that's how you come up with your numbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was wondering where all your numbers coming from, or whether they were giving you beneficial input on that. I was hoping they were. But I just had to ask. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any more conversation for the funding projects? If not, we'll move on to the old business. Old business, UNCA service detours and campus access. Transit committee members request that the committee discuss the UNCA detours and efforts to improve campus access to art service. I've heard that there are certain things that we've been trying to give UNCA, and they don't want it necessarily, saying. Kim has brought it to my attention that somebody had to walk 1.5 miles, and she walked it herself. And Councilwoman Rona, she might want to give her input on that.
I guess the main concern that I have is that we have a major service disruption that's happening on the North Asheville routes. If we had a road closure that was going to be closed for an extended period of time, it would get serious attention. But of course, transit, we do the best we can, but it doesn't always come up with a way for us to meet the need. Now, UNCA will be done with its spring semester pretty soon. But there are riders who are expressing concern, and I did review the route, ride it myself, walk to their building to better understand what they're dealing with. The mitigation that we've put in place has been making it very difficult for people to access their work and living accommodations via transit. And so that's the fullness of what I can say at this point. I know you may already have official concerns that have been expressed from riders, but it would be my suggestion that if the transit committee wanted to review what's happening, what the current plan is, things like when I was riding, it happened to be a rainy day, and the places where the bus stop, there is parking also there. So you're pretty far away from the stop. You get off in the mud, and it's not exactly an ADA accessible stop. So I just kind of looked around just to see, like, what could we possibly be doing better to make this more accessible for the people who are using transit? Is it asking UNCA to make that parking spot that's on W.T. Weaver not parking temporarily while we get the buses closer to the stop? I don't know. There's so many things, but it's certainly something that would be better answered from the staff side, because they could say what the information is coming from UNCA and what the options are.
I can provide information what I know, and I know LaShawn has been visiting with. I think LaShawn has been visiting with UNC Asheville as well. In terms of accessing the campus, we were told we did provide that it was in January. We provided alternative routes, and UNC Asheville communicated with us that they did not want us on campus. That the Founders Drive option and the Edgewood Drive, we could go one way on it. Were not they were not going to allow us to do that. and they were providing shuttles. I do not know what their shuttle their shuttle routes are or what the times are. LaShawn, I know LaShawn can probably add additional information.
Go ahead, LaShawn.
Yes, Amber's correct. We drove. Well, initially they gave us the option to use Founders Drive, and we spoke about it on the phone. We then took the bus and we drove it. We felt like it would work, and then we also drove Edgewood to get the feel of that. They wanted us to circle the complete campus, but they're still also doing construction in the area that we would have to go through. So we reported back to UNCA our findings, and then they came back and said, never mind, just use WT Weaver. I did receive an email today from UNCA stating that it'll be back open in May, but that's still 2 months out. And I understand, Kim, your frustration about the bus stop. We did have some stops removed. I mean, to be able to park there on WT Weaver. But it does let people out in the grass, especially if it rains. And that was just a means of us getting out of the road and being able to sit. And yes, we're also using that as a bus stop.
Oh, to clarify, the bus absolutely needs that stop to be able to catch up on time, and to have a place for the buses to wait. The suggestion that was coming from other riders was there were additional parking spaces on WT Weaver that should be removed so y'all could get closer to the stop.
Okay, we can take a look into that one.
Just to get closer, I think any inches closer, but also maybe not in the grass/mud. It was in favor of removing more car parking so that transit could use that space more effectively. I thought that was a good idea.
Okay, we can look into it.
I thought, didn't we do some no parking along that area?
We did. I think it took about 2 or 3 spots.
Okay.
But I believe we still are having people park.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Colin has his hand raised.
Thanks, Harvey. Yeah, I ride the en routes every day, and the bus parks there on WT Weaver. It parks on one of both sides, depending on where it's trying to catch up on time. And I mean, most of the drivers force me to stand in the grass to get on the bus, so I'm not sure why the grass is less adequate there. But I've never noticed a car parking issue to be a problem. The bus pulls up and parks and tries to get over as far as it can, but I haven't noticed a car parking problem. So, but the city of Asheville transit system has hundreds of stops that are not ADA accessible. So that could be a good goal to improve citywide.
I agree, Colin. I think in this instance, from my experience at the UNCA, stop is because of the amount of construction that's happening there, is making the situation less than desirable or less than is typical. Because a lot of my bus stops are on the side of the road or on a shoulder that don't have a edge at all, much less a sidewalk.
Okay. Thank y'all for the input. I appreciate that very much. Is there anything else that anyone would like to discuss about the UNCA service detours? If not, we'll move on to working group discussions.
Harvey, you have a hand up? Joseph has his hand up.
Yeah, Harvey, hi. Did I miss something? Did you skip over the part of the agenda dealing with the ethics policy?
No, we went over that with Bill. Joseph, we did. We went over those.
I beg your pardon. I must have been sleeping. Pardon me.
It's okay. It's okay, Joe. I just went over. You can still. It has some more in depth wording in it if you go to the actual ethics policy. But we did go over that. And moving on as far as the working groups that will entail bill, working group discussion, multimodal transit working group members will provide updates on their activities. Bill?
Thank you, sir. So everybody's invited. Y'all come. Our next multimodal transportation commission meeting is going to be a working session, and our group is on tap for 50 minutes of it. It's going to be it's in person. It's going to be at Wesley Grant between 2:30 and 5:30 on March 27. So a week from tomorrow is a working session. Just so y'all know, the MMTC is beginning a little change in structure. We're going to have at least 2 working meetings a year where the working groups just spend our 2 hours working on something. And so we get the first hour of this. And the proposed agenda, which we like, was that we'd spend about 20 minutes just sharing with the whole MTC group things we've learned about transit in our observations. So this is kind of basic for this crowd, but it's the kind of thing that if you're, some people in MMTC may not be very familiar with transit. So it'll give them a chance to understand more. So we want to draw their examples. We want to draw their attention to the transit master plan, read it. It's 85 great pages of good stuff, right? We want to draw their attention to the needs for transit to cover coverage and frequency, and the difficulties of optimizing both of those things with a limited amount of funds. We want to draw their attention to how the system we utilize here is real timing sensitive. So we've had conversations about, why can't we just extend a route? Well, you can't, because you can't get back downtown in time to make the transfers, things like that. So just a little bit of an introduction of transit is our first thing. And then what we're going to do is going to break out in 2 working groups, breakout groups. And each of these is going to be a little bit of just a learning. It's not going to try to solve anything. It's going to be, we want people to get familiar with 2 topics that we think are important as we want to raise our sort of priority, if you will, with council. And one is, we're going to have a work session around how transit can be an affordability solution. And I've mentioned this to this group before. We've been working on that. And so we'll spend 15 minutes with just, 3 different demographics. People have different livelihoods. How much money do they spend on their cars? And then how much could transit provide for them? Kind of an affordability aspect. And the other one is, we're going to do a detailed look at how our current system services the legacy neighborhoods. We've all individually done some route riding. We've been studying it a little bit, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, I've been on several routes, and it's hard to get groceries if you live in a legacy neighborhood. So things like that. We want people to understand how what it's like to be a rider if you're transit dependent. And so we thought that would be a useful exercise for everybody to live through the course of a work session. So that's the middle section of the meeting. And then the last 25 minutes, the whole group gets together and just has open conversation about these 2 topics, affordability and how we're servicing legacy neighborhoods. Again, the organization around those 2 points is that those are very important to council. So we're trying to kind of be on that level if we can come up with ways to do it better, then maybe we'll get an attaboy for that. And so that type of thing. So that's our plan. That's, again, it's next Wednesday afternoon. So y'all come. It'd be great if we had a lot of public and visitors attend that meeting. It'd be wonderful. I will not be there. I'm out of pocket, unfortunately, but other members of the group, Elise and Jared, will both be facilitating the work session. And Joe, I guess you're probably still out, but if you happen to be in town, you can facilitate it too. So that's the update, Harvey. Harvey, you're muted.
Sean, it's at the Wesley Grant Center.
Wesley Grant Center.
Yes, 2:30
Yes,
to 5:30 is what the invite says. 2:30 to 5:30 Wesley Grant.
Yeah, I went over that several times, so trying to fit it in my schedule.
All right, good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you very much, Bill. Glad y'all doing some good work. Okay, moving forward on the agenda, Transit Committee member updates and rider experiences. Don't everybody talk at once. Kara, go ahead.
Yeah, rode the bus this weekend to transfer over from West Asheville over South Asheville, and then got some new people on the bus. A couple of my friends had never ridden it before, and they had some friends out of town, so we all took the bus before going into downtown for a concert. Just they, wanted someone to go with them for the first time, so I bussed all the way down to South Asheville so they would have someone with them. Both the stop sign or both of the signages at their stop, they're in South Asheville, off of Chapel Road, didn't even have a route number on it. So I was kind of showing them like, hey, this is where you can like see what route you're on and the times, and you have to like text the number, see when one's coming, or get the app, yada yada. But it didn't even have like S1 on the signage. That was specifically the signage at Chapel Road. So just another call out that it is hard for people who haven't ridden it yet to be like, okay, this is what I do. But yeah, they had a good experience. And actually saw a group of looked like 17 people all in St. Patty's Day stuff on Saturday, hopping off one of the buses heading downtown. So just kind of love seeing a responsible group who was going to be clearly drinking and riding the bus and not, in a car. So hope to see more of that.
Well, Kara, I appreciate that very much. When you run into those signs, they're missing something, please get in touch with Danielle. She's very good at taking care of that. I've ran into those myself. She'll get it taken care of, okay?
Okay, I'll send that over.
Okay, take a picture of it if you can. Whenever you're there, if you don't have time to write anything down, get as much information as you can and give it to her. She's done that several times for me. I appreciate it very much. Okay. Sandy?
Yes, sir. I have maybe a follow-up question for LaShawn. In a meeting we had, I had talked about one of the security guards that does the perimeter of the art station, property and all that kind of thing. And I was wondering, because she said she was going to look into it. I was wondering, LaShawn, did you get a chance to look into that?
Yes, I did. I called, but I didn't get an answer. But I followed up with the supervisor for the security guard as well, and we took care of it on that end.
Okay, so I had another complaint about this guy. Seems that he is bullying people that are sitting inside. And one that told me is he's disabled. He has multiple sclerosis. And I've actually been in there when the security guard has done that to him before. So I would like that looked into because that's not a great thing to be doing to people in there.
Do you have information as far as date and time?
I do not, but I'll look into that because I know I'm telling the truth. And I know the person that told me about this is telling the truth. And my thing is, after everything that has already gone on with him, I'm really wondering why he's still there.
They do progressive discipline as well, the security company, from the meeting that I got with them. So that the complaint from the last time you and I spoke was the first thing that happened. Once I get date and time for this incident, I can go through and review cameras. I can also pass this forward to his supervisor.
Okay, well, the first thing you did, Nicole, I was on the phone with Nicole after that, right after that. So I'll get with her and I will make notes about that and give it to y'all.
Okay, that'll work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, LaShawn. Amber has her hand up.
Sorry, apologies, I was on mute. Now I can't remember. Kara, also let Chris Whitlock on our staff know, or myself or Nicole, about the signs that you see that need to be refreshed or that don't have stickers. We're working on an inventory for the sign improvements as well. So anytime you see that, we're also having the crew that is looking at the cleans to also check the signs as well. Actually, Keith and I are going to be meeting on kind of a process to improve that, or just to kind of just look at what can be improved in terms of our signage and the next steps. So please just let the city staff know as well.
Okay, I'll send that to them.
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you very much. Okay, Bill?
Yeah, I've got two things I noticed in my writing this past month that are just either confusing or missing information as it relates to seeing what's going on with the system. One was I was riding the en routes, and the transit app was telling me that once I got to the final N5 route, I had a 20-minute walk to get to the Grove Park Inn, where the reality is that bus drops off at the front door of the Grove Park Inn. So that would cause someone not to ride the bus if they thought that they were going to have a 20-minute walk. So I don't know if you guys can change that. I know it's not your app, but that's a miss. The other one is when I study routes, I usually do it online. So I go in the system and I'm looking at routes that way. We had a working group meeting and somebody came up with a printed map. And the printed map in the outlying regions was different from what you can see online. So the example, we were looking at far-flung places like Black Mountain and I think South Asheville, and there were a few other places that are kind of out in the tentacles. And the printed map talked about these, I think it was called Trailblazer routes, which must be a county route. I don't know what it is. But those that connected with our service, but those, I couldn't find them on our online routes. So this is a case where when I go online, I don't think I'm seeing the whole system. Maybe I'm seeing all of ART, but I'm not seeing all of the ways in which I could transit. in this region. So I wanted to draw those two things to your attention.
I'm gonna let Chris jump on that. Chris, you got an answer for him?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I can look into it. But I did have a comment about the transit app. I did report some issues to Trillium, which is who we use to provide all the data to the apps. And there are some issues with N1 and N2 not displaying properly. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to get back to us with a solution. But yeah, I noticed that on Google Maps. But Bill, I'll let them know it's on the transit app as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that very much. Okay. I'll go ahead and I got a chance to, I didn't think I was going to get by transit for this month, but I went to a seminar at DSS Saturday and had about an hour to spend down at transit. I got a chance to see some drivers and talk with them. I talked to Daniel. I talked to Nikki. I talked to Z. And I had a chance to talk to the supervisor down there by the name of Tanya. And while I was there, I can't say exactly what I've already told Sean and staff about what I saw down there, but in a little nutshell, I'll just put it like this. I took pictures of everything, which was time and date stamped, gave them a reference to go back through the cameras to look at the situation that I was talking about. But it was a security issue about a section of the transit downtown when you walk in the front, in the doors, before you get to where you talk to the people at dispatch to the left. And from what I saw, it's a blind spot right there for people to do necessarily what they want to do. But they're going to investigate into that, pull the footage up because they have a date. They have a date and the time and everything like that. They can look into it. But that's the information that you need to give them. You send them pictures. That way they can immediately pull the footage up and, you know, they'll give me an answer as far as what they found. And then there were some other things happening around transit as well. I also told staff about that. And I told Amber and I told LaShawn about that, things that they have to talk to outside agencies to make sure transit is a safer place to walk to and be around. And like I said, when I also, after I took all those pictures, I talked to the supervisor that was on duty, and she is aware of what I saw, and she'll have a better eye out as far as looking for people. And then the security guy, he wasn't necessarily doing what he was supposed to be doing. He was back there talking with the drivers in the back of transit. Instead of out doing his job, he's back there hanging around with them for like 20 minutes. Took a picture of him as well while he was back there talking with the drivers. That also has a time date stamp on it. They can look at that. You can see his badge, big as you want to. All those things are important in solving issues that we see. Main thing, like I said, I wasn't going to get involved in that because I could have got hurt Saturday by getting up, taking pictures of what I saw. But I did take pictures after the people left so staff could look into it further. And that's another thing. Don't put yourself in jeopardy trying to take a picture of somebody. That's another thing you shouldn't do. Other than that, I looked at the route folders that they always have at staff, where right there where you talk to the dispatcher, and I was proud of them because all of I even sent a picture of that in. Staff, the staff down there at the station doing their job. All of the folder holders, they had something in it. So if somebody wants to know something about a route, they could go by and pick one up and be fully informed about it. And that was a good thing. I must commend workers down there doing a great job as far as keeping those route folders in the sleeves where they go. And that was a good thing. And that's it for me. Anybody have anything else? I don't see any hands up. We'll move along. Departmental updates, city staff, monthly transit update memo attached. Staff will provide an update of recent activities. Amber.
Hi, all. Thank you, Harvey. I did provide a memo update included in the agenda packet. Just lays out the staffing. Welcome, Keith. Gives an update on the Federal Transit Comprehensive Review, which is our triennial review, which staff committed significant amount of time. The back half of last year, we did receive the final report with deficiencies. We have about 12 deficiencies, about 10 that need to be closed, and we have 90 days to remedy those and work collaboratively with FTA. Majority of them, portion of them, 8 of the instances were on our grants and subrecipient oversight. We had some deficiencies in procurement processes and not having the right written determination letters after the procurement, as well as the right federal clauses. And then we had a financial management practice in terms of a allowability of cost policy that needed to be spelled out. And we updated our financial policies. These are the items we're currently working with. As note, our subcontractors, which are paratransit, and which is Mountain Mobility, and RETB Dev, our fixed route providers, did not receive any deficiencies in terms of their compliance of ADA, drug and alcohol testing, safety, maintenance, continuous control over transit operations, and EEO. We will continue to work on that. Hopefully we can close it by the end of May, and then we'll have another 2 years before the next one. That's an area, for those new to the committee, every 3 years, Asheville as a grant, we are the direct recipient. We have a compliance review done by this FTA, and it's on 23 compliance areas. It's pretty comprehensive. Takes months to prepare, as well as there was additional about 2 weeks of meetings that took place at the end of December. So it's great. It helps to improve our processes and our policies, and just wanted to provide you all with that. The final report is attached. Our grants award management is rolling. We're working on our inactive grants and our subrecipients and their funding plans, so we can create a schedule for grant development, as well as ways to spend the funding for the subrecipients. I did provide the PED presentation. We discussed it a little bit at the beginning here of the meeting. I did find my spreadsheet with all of the cost allocations for S3 and S6. If you'd like me to, I can share it at this meeting, or I can send it out to you. It would be your preference, or we can discuss it at the next meeting. But I do have all those costs. I just failed to include it as an attachment, so you have the same information as we have provided others. So I can share that and walk you through those costs now for S3 and S6, or we can do it at the next meeting. And I can also email it out to you all as follow-up from this meeting.
Which one did you want to do?
I am fine with either one, and I can share it, and we can also go through it at the next meeting. I just apologize for not attaching it. So it's completely, I don't want to throw new info at you, but if you want to see it, we can email it.
That'd be good.
What?
That'd be good.
Okay. I think Kara has her hand raised.
Okay, Kara.
Yeah, I'd love to see it now.
Okay. Let me share it.
Go ahead.
See if I can find it. There you go. It's not pretty, but it's our working document. LaShawn and the team at RATP Dev assisted us with this. We have provided it to individuals. I think Harvey's even seen it. I failed to attach it to this agenda. So my apologies. For S3 and S6, just during peak frequency, would be going from 90 minutes to 40-minute frequency and peak service hours. For both routes, about 3,700 hours of revenue hours. This is for the fiscal year 25 service contract. The cost of adding frequency for peak hours only to each route is about $130,000 per route, including fuel. So that's the cost right here is $256,000. Cost for one is about $130,000. For frequency all day for both routes, it is about $830,000. So it would be about $415,000 per route, including fuel. These costs are not, there's no administration, city administration or anything attached. It's just the fuel and our service contract costs. For the added frequency all day, we would need one additional bus for each route and a minimum of 2 additional drivers. So these are the costs associated with both of these. And I can follow up and share this information to you all after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bill has his hand raised.
Yes, he does. It's all let me see on his little phone. Go ahead, Bill.
Sorry, I think I'm dominating, but so
You're good.
The peak frequency only for a route is $128,000 in additional cost. So how many hours is that costs $130,000 in a day?
You'd look at about, it's 3,700. The daily, I would have to do the analysis on that. LaShawn has all that information. It's 3,700 hours of additional revenue service for both routes. So it would be.
So it's half that for a route.
Yeah. About.
But that's how many hours is peak? How many hours is peak? Like 6 in a day? What does peak mean?
6 a day. Yes, 6 a day. So that is two different peak times. You have morning and afternoon peak.
So the 3,700 is existing service plus, it's not added hours, that's total hours, right? Because 6 hours in a day times 300 days, what is that? It's 300 times, okay, so I'm not getting that. 0, 48, 4. That just seems like a lot of hours because a driver costs, how much does a driver cost? $65,000, $70,000? So what are we buying for $130,000 is my question. I don't get that.
It'd be an additional driver and 6 hours of frequency on 2 routes. I mean, that's 2 routes. That's 2 routes. So it'd be 12 hours a day of additional service. Am I correct, LaShawn?
Yeah, but that's 256,000. That's what you're what you're paying 256 for. So You get 12 extra hours. So is it right to think that an hour of service is 256 divided by annual equivalent of 12 hours a day?
We can provide the additional. I mean, currently and I would have to look into what the rate is. You've got a fixed fee. We annualize that with the hours, as well as then we provided, I think, is it 54 something for just the service, and then the fixed fee is another 50. So it's over $100 and some an hour for just service.
So you added the fixed fee component.
Yeah, on a per hour.
But you don't have more fixed costs.
Well, I believe there are. I mean, these are what we were provided, so we can get additional information for you.
I would love to see the breakdown, because this would be a real good way to understand how much does transit costs on an hourly basis. I'm worried about adding fixed fees to a variable analysis, though. I mean, you're adding a bus, you're adding a driver, and if you've got other parts of your $12 million that you're throwing in there, I'm not sure that's a fair assessment.
We'd have to take a look at it. This was done a few months ago, and I can delve into that and provide additional information. I just know you all wanted to see the costs associated with it. And LaShawn, do you want to, if you have anything to add? Clearly, I thought I was going to attach it and I didn't, and haven't looked at this in the last couple weeks.
Well, it sounds like if there's a detail that can come with it, that's what I'd be looking for. I think it's extremely useful, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. I think it's extremely valuable information for all of us to know. It throws me for a loop, because I was thinking the variable costs were not that high. I've been told that drivers are 80% of our costs. I know how much drivers cost because it's tacked onto the back of a bus. We pay so much per hour. And so to think that we can add 12 hours to a route and it costs us $130,000 a year, I'm having trouble putting those numbers together.
I believe we provided a breakdown with that as well.
That'd be great. So we don't have to consume the meeting time. That'd be great.
We can. This also includes fuel.
I understand. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving on. If no one has any more questions about that, operations updates, art staff, operational RAPT dev reports.
So we also provided the monthly report, including the on-time performance, ridership, PM reports. Was there anything that anybody wanted to go over or had questions about?
Would anyone like to pick one so that Sean could explain it to you today? Okay, LaShawn, how about the ridership reports for February? How are they?
Let me pull that up for you.
I didn't get a chance to look at that one.
So the ridership for February, we're looking at 119,000 riders. I'm sorry, 128,000 riders. I was looking at January.
Oh, Kentucky. That sounds good. Okay. 28,000. Okay. That's great. Okay. All right.
I'll have the
It's
breakdown.
so small. Yeah, it's so small on my phone I can't see it.
Were
Is
there
there
any?
anything significant? Is there anything significant that stood out in the month of February?
No. Everything. It looks like everything is climbing. I see W6 gained some ridership.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
A lot actually. All of them actually gained ridership,
Great.
and we're hoping
Great.
to continue to climb.
That sounds great. It's good for ridership to increase. That's good. It's not even a holiday. That's all right. Except for Valentine's Day. That was
And the
everybody
short one.
spending money. Yeah, that's a short one. Yeah, it's a short one. It's been.
He had an extra day in February, so.
Oh yeah. The 29th. Yep.
Yeah, we got a chance to count the leap year babies this year. Okay. Okay, that was it for me, LaShawn. Anybody else?
Kara has her hand raised.
Okay. Kira, go ahead.
Hey, LaShawn, I was just looking at the numbers, and it looks like the S2 was up at like 129% February versus January. And then I looked at the on-time performance for the S2 and was actually pretty surprised that it's one of the worst, or is the worst route for the past month. And was just wondering if there's any analysis going on. Like, do we look at these things combined over time to see how they're affecting, or yeah, just kind of wanted to see what's being looked at from a staff standpoint.
Yeah, S2 W5 is interlined together, and that is one of our worst performing routes. And this is the first route that we're going to dive into to do an analysis on, just because we know it is our worst performing route. It's actually W5 that causes the S2 to become horrible as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I know it's awesome that we're like 129% up from February over January, but you know, if you're riding the same route and it keeps being late and late, I know that's frustrating and could dissuade ridership. So just wondering how we were looking at that correlation. Thanks.
Yeah, we're still picking up the people. It's just that it's taking forever for them, you know, just because of the traffic on Patton Avenue. So they're still waiting and probably adding more to people waiting, but yeah, they're still riding.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, LaShawn.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add to any of the reports, or have anything else they'd like to express before we adjourn? Okay. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for their support.
Sandy has her hand raised.
Who?
Sandy has her hand raised. I'm sorry.
He said who?
It says
Yeah.
Sandy Sunny. Sunny Sandy.
Yeah, on my phone. Yeah, on my phone it's hiding your name out. Okay.
Well, okay.
Go ahead, Sandy.
I also watched the planning video, City of Asheville, and Councilwoman Sage Turner was expressing that they're interested in increasing ridership for the buses, and she invited transit committee members to send comments or something to her. That would be great.
Send comments to her about what? Hello?
Sorry. To how to increase ridership on the buses.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Kara?
Was she looking at that for like one collective thought as like a transit committee or as individuals to her? I didn't watch that meeting.
I think anybody that has an idea, can probably email it to her or something.
Thanks.
Okay. Amber?
We'll add this to the next month's agenda, but we are working with Land of Sky on their travel demand. They do a Strive to Drive week. I know Chris has been involved in the committee the last couple meetings, and what day is it? May 13th, Chris, is going to be Fare Free Transit Day of that 13th. Week. It's strive to not drive, and there's different, not strive to drive. It is an effort to just promote bike ped and bus transit and commuting and just different shared ridership. And they've done it in the past, and we will be working, and there'll be promotional activities that will be taking place, I believe, for that particular day for Fare Free Transit and other activities that are going on the whole week.
That's the week of May 13th.
And we'll provide more information. They haven't provided any promotional information or anything. And Chris, is there any update from the meeting?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, though one of the members will be joining the travel training committee to maybe seek some of their help in promoting the event. But yeah, we haven't received any of the promotional material yet.
Okay.
That's all we got, Harvey.
That's it. Oh. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for their support today and all of the input that was given on this evening. And I'd also like to welcome again Mr. Keith Sanders to our family, our transit family. Glad you came. And we're complete now. All right. Now, next meeting will be April 16th. And thanks everyone for coming, and keep coming back. Thank you. Good night.
Thank
you,
everyone.
everybody.